This program is sponsored in part by the National Catholic Society of Foresters. Hello again and welcome to Looking at Social Justice, a brand new podcast, video podcast from the Diocese of Fresno. I'm Jim Grant, the Director of Social Justice Ministry for the Diocese, and it's my privilege today to once again have 30 minutes with Zach Darrah, who is the Executive Director of Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministry here in Fresno. I must admit that when Sharon Stanley left Fresno to move on to the capital to do some other work in Washington, it was a loss to the Valley. It was a loss to Fresno and to FIRM. Sophia DeWitt, Reverend Sophia DeWitt did a fine job holding it together, but since Zach has been here, there's been I think, a real energy picking up almost what it was that Sharon was able to bring to the Valley. We're so grateful, Zach, that you're here. You've been on programs with me. Your staff has been on other programs when we did our program called Catholic Social Teaching 101. So today, I'd love you to be able to introduce us to the present situation of your ministry with your team over at FIRM, and also the U.S.'s response as a country. What are we doing regarding the global crisis that you are addressing locally? So introduce yourself and your team and what you're doing, Zach.
Sure. So FIRM, this is our 24th year serving the refugee community here in Fresno. We exist to share Christ's love, to build communities of hope with new Americans. And we do that in a very interdenominational and interfaith way. FIRM is all about partnerships. We partner with about 50 different denominational groups and with multiple faiths here in our community. And most of the people that we serve, are not particularly connecting with the Christian faith. And so most of the people who come through our doors, about 80%, are not from the Christian community, but come from the Buddhist community, Muslim community, traditional Hmong religion, and about half of our staff is composed of people that are not from the Christian faith, that are from a whole different background of faiths and cultures.
And that's what makes FIRM so special.
Yes.
It's interdenominational, and it does a ministry that has a rooting in just goodness and sharing that message. And I'm really grateful that you're able, with your both business background and your religious training and theological degree, able to really bridge that challenge of addressing an issue very systematically, very professionally, and religiously, and interfaith.
Yes, sir.
One person who speaks of interfaith often in his presentations happens to be Pope Francis. And I'd like to introduce us to a short 90-second clip in which Pope Francis is able to invite the world to take up the challenge that Zach has proposed, that we minister to refugees among us. What the Pope is saying in this clip is showing us the direction of the Church towards the need to see in each person. He says, can one country alone manage the problems of forced migration? Is it possible that one place can do it? He says, no, it's much more important that all of us, that we move from indifference and for the fear of accepting the other, and the other being all the many people. Why? Because that other could be you or me. He says, this is something that I ask you to join me in prayer, so that we will finally look at the countries that are taking in great numbers of displaced persons and refugees and support them, because their efforts are what shows solidarity with the most needy among us. So I want to thank the Pope for that wonderful message, which comes from the Pope video, November 2016. But from the moment that the Pope was installed, one of his first pleas was to address refugees. And he went to Lampedusa within weeks of his naming as our Pope. With that energy, Zach, of seeing one world leader, where do you get your energy? Where does your staff find the support they need to do such a difficult ministry?
Sure, and I think part of it comes down to our mission. And, and first, before I say that, I do want to just say that Pope Francis has just been a great world leader in spreading this message. And spreading the message of what's happening with refugees is not just even one faith's issue, not one country's issue, not one people's issue. It is a world issue. And so I love, obviously the video, and thank you for sharing that. And that's one of multiples of things that he has come out and said in very forceful ways. And that deeply resonates with who we are at FIRM, definitely. But I think it goes to our mission at FIRM, which begins with the three first words of our mission is sharing Christ's love. Now that, that once you say things like Christ and things like that in interfaith context, people will start to go, well, I don't know if I can do that, right? We bring our staff together and we study the Bible and pray together. And for me, with staff and with partners, I say, look, if we can get around the idea that at least, let's say you're not a person of faith, or let's say you come from a Buddhist background, or let's say you come from a traditional Hmong religious worldview. And I say, look, maybe we can at least agree that Jesus was a historical person. Most people will not deny that. An overwhelming majority of people will not deny that. Okay, and then maybe we could at least say that Jesus loved people in a very special and unique way. So, not even talking about who Jesus said that he was, what Jesus may have done in his life and his death and his resurrection, saying, did Jesus love people in a special way? What does this book, the Bible, say about that? What does the Quran say about that? What do other books and teachings say about that? And most people say, well, that makes sense to me. I can do that, right? And so for me as a Christian, right, and I come from a Baptist background, but my views about who Jesus is going to differ widely from someone on my staff who is a Buddhist. But at the very least, we can get around the idea of sharing love in a special way, Jesus' example of what that means. And oddly enough, in the Muslim faith, right, we go, well, yeah, Jesus is a very important person to Muslims. And in the Quran, it records miracles and ways that Jesus interacted and loved other people. So that is a bridge right away. And so I think what I tell people often is that we're less of a theological institution and more of a sharing Christ's love institution.
If all of us did that, it might be a more practical way to do ministry anyway.
Sure.
The less territorial, doctrinal, dogmatic, but the more expansive and embracing and generous,
yes,
the better for the ministry.
Absolutely.
So about your ministry, could you introduce us maybe to some of the staff, and that would let us know by mentioning a staff what you encompass in your ministry, your real mission, sharing Christ's love. How does that break down with your team?
Sure. Yeah, so like I said, when we get the staff together, that's always the focus of our kind of the beginning of our time together. Oftentimes looking at examples of Jesus' ministry to the poor or other teachings about that in the scriptures. However, when I guess we could point out one of our staff, you may have met him, but Mohammed Talib. So Mohammed Talib is Iraqi. He's a devout Muslim and has been on our staff now for nearly 2 years, serving the Syrian refugees predominantly. But as we've served Syrian refugees, we've served Arabs from 5 to 7 countries, Yemenis and Afghanis and Iraqis, Iranians, Syrians, and people have just come through our doors when they learn that we have Arabic-speaking staff. So, when we first met, Mohammed and myself, Firm had historically not had any Muslims on our staff.
No.
So even when I went to the board of directors of
Wow.
Firm and I said, hey, guys, I think we need to hire some Muslims to join our team if we're going to properly serve this community. And there really wasn't much pushback from that. It was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And so, because we're not serving people necessarily, we're not necessarily in the business of conversion or however you'd like to word that. We're in the business of sharing love with people. So Mohammed, fit right in on the team. He represents that idea very clearly and very well in the work he does every day. And it's happened rather seamlessly.
I remember meeting Mohammed when he was on a program. It was so exciting to know that it began as translating and being
Yes.
able to be the facilitator for the people that were needing to be ministered to,
Yes.
mainly Syrians that had come at one point. There was actually an influx of refugees from Syria. So when I'd be watching the news and seeing how awful the civil war kept going and going, we knew that at Firm, Muhammad Talib was there working with your Syrian refugees.
That's correct. That's correct.
How has his work, in a sense, over 2 years, morphed or developed, or what is it that right now is going on with your Syrian refugees,
Yes.
first of all?
Yes, so when we first had the kind of the secondary migration, I guess if you want to call it that, when families are first resettled in the country, they can move anywhere they want. And depending on where they are, there's different challenges to that, mostly socioeconomic in nature. For example, we have families from San Diego who are paying, $1,800 to $2,200 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. That's not going to work for a refugee family.
Nope.
Resettling and being here some of them in the first year of being in the United States. So we started having, just families come. It started with 4 and 6 and 8 and 10, and now we have about 38
Wow.
families here in Fresno. And so Mohammed and the team, and we currently have 3 Arabic speakers on that team, one from Yemen, one who is Syrian, and Mohammed who is Iraqi. And they were doing a lot more of that initial resettlement work, which is everything from housing to transferring social services, job placement, getting kids enrolled in school, figuring out how to help people get driver's licenses. We were also able to give cars. We gave 10 cars through the donations of our community, cars that were given to families just arriving. So a lot of kind of real, I guess, just that initial resettlement work that is required. Some of the work that's progressed from there has been really immigration related, green cards. I think now we're almost done. I want to say we probably have 75 to 80% of the families completely done with their green card applications and the process, and are now receiving their green cards, which is really amazing. And that's a huge stress for families when they come. And so, and you have to be here a year and a day before you can even apply, and then the application process is incredibly lengthy. It's very challenging, and we actually talk about partnership. We had a private school from San Francisco that had a teacher that was from Fresno. This school focuses on social justice issues. It's called Lick Wilmerding High School, and it has a social justice aspect to their curriculum. So they have to do a service learning project every year as part of their regular course load. And so he had reached out to me when he saw the story about the Syrians in the New York Times and said, we want to do something. Well, this incredible thing, God does incredible things at Firm like this. One of the students' fathers runs the largest immigration attorney firm in San Francisco. So they did a 1-day training on how to do these green card applications for all the kids in the class. They all came to Fresno, stayed at Firm, and we did a 2-day workshop on green card applications, and we finished about 15 families in 2 days. It was really beautiful and rich, and just talking about how God, weaves people together, and it was really special. And so we've continued to work on that. And then it's a lot of things. Job placement is very important. We are doing things with literacy with the children, and working on ESL, and just some of those continued services that are required. You still have families that have, are working on their English, so there's still needs, very real needs with regards to Arabic, whether it's looking at, correspondence through the mail or social service things, whatever it might be.
Besides the Syrian refugees, which would come to mind because we know that's basically what we are thinking about.
Yes.
But you minister there to so many other
Yes.
ethnic communities
Oh, yes.
and other Muslim countries.
Yes.
Do you want to introduce us to something besides the Syrian
Sure.
community?
Sure. So in 2017, we served refugees from 22 different countries who came through our doors, worked with our team on varying issues and varying needs. A lot of these people who come through our doors just don't know where else to go, and so they end up coming to Firm. That puts us in interesting situations because we don't have the linguistic abilities on our staff sometimes, but we figure out ways, usually people who know someone who knows somebody, hey, do you know someone who speaks Urdu? And I don't know, let's find someone who speaks Urdu, and then finding that person, coming in, and then trying to work with case managers on these types of issues with different folks. And so, so people, one that came to mind last year, because I was involved, was just a family that came from Pakistan. Wow. Right? And we don't see a lot of Pakistanis that come through our door, but this was a woman and her children who came, and they came seeking asylum and needed a lot of support, right? One that we're still seeing today are new families from Ukraine, from the war that's going on there. That's still a very real war. We still are receiving refugees from that country, and refugees are going all over the world from Ukraine today. There's just a brand new family that came to Fresno last week, family of 9. That's fresh, first time here in the United States, just came as part of the federal refugee resettlement program.
We sometimes think of refugees as being Middle Easterners, maybe South Americans, maybe Central Americans, maybe Africans. But the idea of understanding that you have been, since its foundation, ministering to Slavic refugees.
Yes, absolutely.
22 countries. How many people
Yes.
are on your staff to put those two numbers together? So you have 22 countries
Yes.
that are ministered to in one form or another.
Yes.
How many people on staff?
We have about 38 staff members.
Wow.
And they represent 12 different nations, and we have 10 spoken languages on our team. And then we have a wide network of just people that when we have folks who walk through the door, and it's like, boy, does anybody know anyone that speaks this language? We've had people from some of the African nations with languages that are just really challenging. Now, one of our staff, and this wouldn't even be included in the 10 really, but because his primary language is actually French, he's from Congo.
Oh
But he speaks 5 different languages.
Oh man.
And then we have a staff from Ethiopia, and she speaks 3 different languages. And so, people in their secondary languages or more, especially from African nations where there are so many spoken languages, even in one particular country. When we began serving Ethiopians, we now have an African refugee program. I said, okay, so what are the linguistic needs for this community? Oh, well, there's about 300 languages spoken in Ethiopia alone, and so it's certainly a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're used to encountering, and we find ways to figure out how to communicate, or people in the community. The staff is very resilient, but we might have a Hmong caseworker. In fact, we have one right now who's serving in 2 Afghan families as part of his caseload. And so, it's a beautiful picture, no doubt about it. And, oddly enough, for new refugees who arrive, who meet someone like this particular guy's name is Hu Veng, whose family are all refugees. He knows well about the challenges for these families that come through our door, regardless of being from Afghanistan or being from Laos. So you know, I tell people it's an incredibly unique place. I don't know a lot of places like it. I've been throughout the United States and encountered lots of organizations, and most people go, "What? What do you guys do?" And we do it all to share Christ's love, which is another added kind of layer and component to why we do what we do.
There are many interfaith organizations and agencies and committees and collaboratives in town, or in the whole valley.
Sure.
And many of the members who come are knowing that where they came from, they didn't have that phenomenon going on in their community.
Right.
But what Firm does is even a step deeper or bigger. It's more bold, because it's a ministry that actually cuts to the chase over separating and is able to combine very disparate pieces. Like when you say that a Hmong will minister to the Syrians,
Right.
because he would know that already, his own family.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and we just see beautiful things and moments happen at Firm. We had a international food festival about a couple months ago, and we had Syrians, Africans, Afghans, Hmong, Laotian, Cambodian, all together in one place and more. And it was truly amazing. We had Syrians. We played music from all the different cultures, because there were also Ukrainians, and the Slavic community was there. And when one of the Syrian songs came on, some of the Syrians went out and started dancing in their traditional dance. The Hmong folks went out and joined them, the Lao folks.
Oh my.
So we had this beautiful, everyone holding hands, because you hold hands in the traditional dance, and everyone's learning the dance from them, listening to Syrian music, and everyone else is watching, clapping. I mean, it's a beautiful thing in a time in our history where it seems like in our country specifically, there's a lot of separating going on.
Oh my God, yeah.
There's a lot of let's keep people out going on. And so being able to cut through that with a beautiful moment and beautiful moments like that, I think shows maybe even deeper at the picture of what our nation is actually about.
So ballpark figure, when you came on staff as director, executive director for Firm, maybe how many staff did you have?
We had 8 staff when I came on.
So you've added 30,
Yes.
which is amazing. My question might be, where is the funding for the major part of that? And how can the community that's watching this program or hearing this program, how can we participate in what Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministries does?
Yes. So a bulk of our funding comes from government and foundational support. And so a big chunk of our dollars actually comes from Fresno County Department of Behavioral Health. And so a lot of our services that we're able to do are through mental health dollars.
Wow, that's great.
And then we have funders such as First Five Fresno County and the California Endowment, and we have banks that support Firm, and a large group of donors and churches. So we have about 100 churches that give very generously to our organization to help us allow us to continue the ministry.
So let's find out about those 100 congregations, churches. They're from the valley, or
all over the place. I'm actually going at the end of September to the Nevada Presbytery meetings in Reno, Nevada.
Oh my!
Because the Nevada Presbytery has been a funder of Firm for 20 years.
Oh my, is that beautiful?
Yes, and so, and we have folks in Oregon, and we have churches all over Santa Barbara, and obviously a lot here in Fresno, but people from all over the place.
Well, what I would say, if you could do us a favor, so that the Catholic community in particular,
Sure.
but also all viewers and hearers of the program,
Sure.
could know how to contribute. So what we'll do besides this program is make sure we put up a link to learn more about Firm and to support this wonderful ministry.
Absolutely.
Help Zach and his 37 members to keep doing what they're doing.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
amazed
yes.
at growth of staff, because I
Absolutely.
knew it was very small.
Yes.
You could count the people, and they were
Yes.
doing humongous work.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you've added so many because of, I guess, it's just a much broader,
Absolutely.
it's just wider what you're
Absolutely.
doing. It's bigger.
We've added new groups that we serve. We've added, like the Syrian program and then the African program also. So we've added 2 kind of new, unique groups that we didn't really serve before. And so there's staff associated with both of those groups. And because of the linguistic needs and requirements, if I'm seeking out grant funding or whatever it is, I'm saying, well, hey, we'd like to serve these 5 groups. They're each going to need a staff person because
Yeah.
we have 5 linguistic, needs for each of the people groups. And so, so I'm always looking for new ways to expand, new ways to strengthen. We just added the Syrian literacy program, which was funded through Golden One Credit Union.
Oh my.
And so that has now added staff to now run a year-round literacy program for 50 Syrian children here in our community. So, we're doing a lot of great things, but
Yeah.
our lifeblood are our individual donors and the churches who have supported FIRM for some of them for decades and decades. And even just today, before I came out the door, a church, Family Alliance Church, one of our Hmong congregations, came in and brought a check, a donation to FIRM. And so, churches of all different ethnic backgrounds and different denominations coming to support the work that we do, and that's our lifeblood. It's God providing the resources that we need to do His work here on earth. Yeah.
So besides the staff, which has grown so much, and this funding that you're able to get, what about volunteers? Can you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about kind of what they do and therefore what others could join them doing? What are some
Absolutely.
things that we could be sharing in volunteer?
So we have about 1,000 volunteers at FIRM every year. Yeah, mostly from Fresno, but from all over the
Wow.
place. Volunteers at FIRM do a variety of activities. One easy way is our community events. So FIRM has about 10 community events a year. Some of them draw 1,000 people to our campus, which is right up the street from where we are here.
That's right.
And so, our community Christmas event, we did 1,300 new toys for children in our community. And the reason why we do that, because a lot of people ask me, it's very expensive to do. It's challenging to fund. We typically don't lack in hands to help, but the dollars to do these events is significant. However, bringing people together is something that we deeply believe in. We also know that many of the folks we serve don't go to kind of the mainstream events that happen in our community because they don't know about them, they've never heard of them, nobody's there that looks like them or speaks their language. So we kind of do our own versions of a lot of kind of the mainstream events that happen. So whether it's our backpack school supplies giveaway that we just did a few weeks back, or the Christmas event, or the International Food Festival. We do a Laotian New Year celebration. We'll do a Trunk or Treat Fall Festival in October. So we kind of have a calendar, and we bring hundreds and hundreds of people to our campus, and it's a really special part of what we do. So volunteers are what make that happen.
I think you've heard Zach make it clear they like volunteers.
Yes.
They've got 1,000, but you could be 1,001.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Zach, for
Absolutely.
making this powerful program about Fresno Interdenominational Refugee Ministry. We hope you'll watch this program, share it with your friends, and join the ministry that is being so well directed by Zach Darrah and his team. God bless. Till next time, Jim Grant.